What is up, guys? This is Linthio coming at you with a discussion video today about Floodgate cards, and are they a necessary evil and a needed type of card in this day and age? Now, I know that a couple of YouTubers actually did a video on Floodgate cards and the whole discussion before the ban list, but I wanted to wait to see if the Floodgate cards were actually hit to see if it was going to be a decent discussion or not. And now that they really weren't touched, aka Vanity's Emptiness, I do believe that it's a pretty good discussional point right now. Floodgate cards are defined as a card that severely limits / stops / restricts whatever your opponent from pulling off their combos, from activating certain cards, and from basically doing anything. Floodgate cards back in the day can be considered like Yatagarasu, stops your opponent from drawing, locking them down. Royal Oppression, completely locking your opponent down off special summon, and Cold Wave, basically stopping them from doing fucking anything. But now we have the skill drains, we have the Vanity's Emptiness, we have the Denko Sek, it can be considered a Floodgate card. Then we have different cards like Majesty's Fiends and Vanity's Fiends. They're Floodgate cards as well. Normally Floodgate cards are continuous spells / traps or whatever, because monsters never really on average had that type of Floodgate ability. As I said, Majesty's Fiend is a pretty good one at that. Floodgate cards in this game allow players to stop your opponent from going off and making it basically their game. If we take into account one of the most widely used cards now, which is Vanity's Emptiness, this will basically stop your opponent from special summoning anything. So if they are mid-combo, for example, it can be used to neg your opponent in many ways. If we take a Jiatu, for example, your opponent has a Jiatu on their side of the field, they activate the effect to discard 2 Yangzing cards. You flip Vanities and they have negged 2. Now, the problem with cards like this in that situation is it's very unfair. But there are a lot of cards that can also do the exact same thing. Solemn Warning can do the exact same thing, Breakthrough Skill can do the exact same thing, Phoenix Chain, so on and so forth. All these cards can do the exact same thing as to what Vanity's has just done to that Jiatu. Does that mean that Vanity's Emptiness is on the same level as them? Well, no, not necessarily. But it just shows that these type of cards aren't completely out of their league. They aren't completely out there on their own. There are other cards that can be backed up if, for example, these Floodgate cards are gone from the game. The best thing about these Floodgate cards is the fact that they are incredibly powerful. If we look at the previous cards that are banned now, that were used back in the day as Floodgate cards, you had Cold Wave and Royal Oppression. These two cards were very powerful because they just lock down your opponent. Now, if we take Royal Oppression and Vanity's Emptiness, they're very similar cards, aren't they? With Royal Oppression, you paid life points to stop a monster being special summoned. With Vanities, you have no cost, it's just there, but it has the restriction of if one of your cards has gone to the graveyard, except from the hand, Vanity's Emptiness will destroy itself. Now, there are obviously ways around that, for example, Trap Stun, essentially turning off your own Vanities, being able to use it yourself, and then in your opponent's turn, they are locked down from special summoning. But do we think that Royal Oppression is not as good as Vanity's Emptiness? Now, that is a very strong thing to say, and some people might say, well, hold on a second. Royal Oppression's banned for a reason, right? Well, yes, Royal Oppression is a very good card. A very good Floodgate card at that, but the one thing that sets Vanity's Emptiness from Royal Oppression is your opponent can use Royal Oppression as well. If we take into example, I have a field all set up with Royal Oppression. My opponent, Raigekis. There go my cards. Now I'm restricted by my own Royal Oppression. At the end of the day, they both suffer from the same problems. Floodgate cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, in my opinion, are needed. Mainly because it keeps the meta in check. It keeps all these decks in check. If we look at the Cloths that are going to come out very soon, they are powerful. They are turbo as hell. They can do a lot of things in one go. But if I flip over Vanities when they activate their ritual spell, that kind of stops them. Now, you might say it stops them completely to the point where they can't function. Yes, that is what a Floodgate card does. But is that such a bad thing in the sense that it gives you a chance to fight against these decks? Because if Cloths go off, for example, and they use the Djinns, they ritual summon a monster, using that Djinn, you now can't special summon, but you have to get around that monster to get rid of that special summon block on your side of the field. That is better than Vanity's Emptiness because it's harder to get rid of. Other notable Floodgate cards in this game are Skill Drain, which completely locks you down from resolving monster effects because technically you can activate them, but they just don't do anything because they fizzle. It's a really solid card, but at the end of the day, it can be stopped. The problem with all of these Floodgate cards is that they suffer from being what they are, a spell or trap card. And there are, if you think about it, a lot of ways around them. If you really get shut down by a back row Floodgate card, you should main deck for that problem. A lot of decks, like Niklas for example, will run 3 MST, 2 or 3 Nightbeam, and different back row cards that basically stop your opponent from activating them or anything like that to kind of get around them. That is what you need to do if you're really afraid of these Floodgate cards. But I just don't believe Floodgate cards are actually a real problem. Now, I'm not saying that they are not broke. I'm not saying they are not overpowered. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be in the game. Certain Floodgate cards that we have now, yes, probably shouldn't be in the game or should be restricted. But Floodgate cards, in my opinion, are a necessary evil to keep this game in check from being crazy, because otherwise it becomes a very dice roll-esque game once again, like a couple of formats that we have had. For example, the wind-up loop is one of the most recent dice roll formats where you just basically, if you didn't go first and you're up against wind-ups, you basically lost your hand and you couldn't play. So that is it, guys. I want to know what you guys think of Floodgates in this game. Do you think they are necessary evil? Do you think we should just get rid of them and Konami should stop ever printing any form of Floodgate cards again? So as I said, let me know down in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I should catch you guys later.